happy Sunday, COC. How are we doing this morning? Yes, all right. I can tell you guys are excited to be in church, and I'm excited you're here. We got a great message for you today. But before we dive into that, I got some good news for you, parents. You survived spring break 2018. Way to go. Yeah, woo, parents. That's right. Well, if you send a legacy, you still got one more week to go, so good luck with that. All right, so we talked about this last week, and I need to know how it went. So let me see, show of hands. Who here invited someone to Easter at COC? One person, all right, way to go. Oh, two people, all right, way to go. You guys are awesome, you rock. The rest of you, what's your problem? What are you waiting for? You only have 2 weeks till Easter gets here. All right, don't feel too bad if you didn't invite someone yet, because I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I haven't invited anyone either. My wife has been inviting people, my kids have been inviting people, and they invited all my people. Like they beat me to it. So now I had to go back to the drawing board, get a new list. I've been praying for them this week, and I'm telling you, this is the week. So you guys with me? You in? You're going to invite someone to COC this Easter? You're going to do it? All right, awesome. Let's do it. This is the week. And I'm telling you, this year is the easiest time to ever invite someone to Easter services because Easter is on April Fool's Day. Just tell people, hey, you don't come to Easter, you're a fool. No, don't do that. No, that probably wouldn't work too well. But seriously, invite someone because I'm telling you, we have been working so hard planning this service. We started December 26th, right? No, just kidding. But we have been planning this for a long time. It's going to be an awesome service. And at the end of it, you're going to go, if you didn't invite someone, you're going to go, oh, I wish so-and-so would have been here. They needed to hear that message. So put them on their list, start praying for them, and invite them. You got 2 weeks from today until Easter gets here. One more question for you this morning. Who here has ever made a bargain with God? Anybody? Anyone? Yeah, kind of, maybe, sort of. Yeah, those of you who aren't raising your hands, you're making a bargain with God right now. He's not going to strike you dead for lying in church. Because come on, people, we've all done it. And usually it starts at an early age, right? I remember when I was a teenager, my bargains with God usually centered around the 3 G's. You guys know what the 3 G's are, right? Girls, grades, and grounding. God, if you please just help me pass this test, even though I didn't study. I will do anything. God, if you don't let me get grounded this one time, I'm all in. I will serve you. I will go anywhere. God, if she says yes to this one date, I promise I will. Of course, that strategy backfired on me when I realized I was praying these prayers, and usually the reason why I hadn't studied for the test and the reason why I was out past my curfew was because of the girl. So God said, all right, no problem. Get rid of the girl. All your problems are solved. But then as we grow up, our problems tend to grow up with us, don't they? Yeah. And so what happens? Our bargains with God start to get more serious. Right? We go, if this surgery works, God, I will do anything. God, if she will just stay, God, I will, I promise. God, if you get me out of this financial hole, I'll do it differently next time. I'll do anything that you want. You know, or maybe you're here this morning and you're in the opposite boat. Maybe you go, I made bargains with God in the past and it just blew up in my face. Right? Maybe your bargains didn't turn out the way that you had hoped in your head. And so you go, that's it, I'm done. I'm out. I'm done with this God thing. I'm not making bargains with him anymore. If he's not going to play my game, then I'm just walking away. So if you can relate to any one of those scenarios, maybe you bargained with God in the past, you're bargaining with God right now, or maybe you're just done making bargains with God, then you can relate to our Resurrection Renegade this morning. Because our Resurrection Renegade that we're going to meet today, he is a guy who thought he could play God, thought he could leverage God to get what he wanted. So as we're moving towards Easter, as we're thinking about the days and weeks that led up to the cross, does that ring a bell? Can you think of anyone who tried to make a bargain with God, and when it didn't work out the way that he wanted, he walked away, he turned his back on Jesus and said, that's it, I'm done. Any guesses who our Resurrection Renegade is today? Judas, that is the man. We have a winner down here, my friends. And the reason we're talking about Judas today is because, let's face it, there's a little bit of Judas in me, and there's a little bit of Judas in you. Whoa, wait a minute, Ben. Did you just compare me to Judas, the greatest traitor of all time? No, that is not me. Yes, it is, and here's how I know that that's true. Because when we talked about making bargains with God, we all got a little smile on our face, right? We had a little chuckle inside, remembering that the bargains that we made with God, the times that we thought that we could leverage God to get what we wanted. Now, it's not just you, it's not just me, it's not just Judas. In fact, all the disciples played this game with Jesus. In fact, one day a rich man came to talk to Jesus, and he said, "Jesus, what do I have to do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus goes, "That's simple. All you have to do is keep the commandments." And the guy goes, "Great, I've done that since I was a kid." Which already we know he didn't, because he's lying right there. No one can keep all the commandments. But Jesus goes, "All right, you think you've kept all the commandments? There's just one more thing I need you to do for me. I want you to go sell everything that you have, give the money to the poor, and then come follow me." And the man doesn't say another word. He just hangs his head and he walks away, because he goes, I can't do it. I love my stuff too much. Now, the disciples are there, right? They have a front row seat to this conversation. And they're thinking, this sounds like pretty good news to them. Because they go, "Hey, we've already done that. We give up our careers. We give up our possessions. We give up everything to follow you, Jesus." And so Peter thinks this would be the perfect time to ask the question that all the disciples are thinking in the back of their mind. Matthew 19:27. Peter says, "We've left everything to follow you. What then will there be in it for us?" Right? That's what they want to know. It's what we want to know. Jesus, what's in it for me? And of course, all the disciples are thinking this because they have Old Testament expectations for what the Messiah would look like, right? They thought he would be a political leader, that he'd be a military hero, that he would be the one that set them free from the Romans. The only problem is Jesus didn't really seem to hate the Romans that much, did he? In fact, he had more of a problem with his own people, with his own religious leaders. And that wasn't very messianic. That didn't fit the Messiah mold. Because the Messiah's job was to unite the country, to get all of Israel headed in one direction. And if he was going to do that, he needed the religious leaders on his side. He needed them to buy in. But all he did was kept, getting into arguments with them. The other problem with Jesus was he didn't seem to care that much about money, right? He would get money, but then he would just give it away. It was like he trusted his heavenly Father to give him his daily bread. Now, if you're going to be a Messiah, you need an army, and armies aren't cheap. You need like a war chest. You need to be collecting money, putting it in the bank, making interest. So Judas saw the potential. He saw the crowds growing. He saw the sermons. He saw the miracles. He goes, this Jesus guy, he could be the one. He could be the Messiah. But he just needs some help. I need to point him in the right direction. I need to help him get focused on what the Messiah is all about. So Judas goes, hey, look, I know I'm never going to be the king, but maybe I could be the king maker. That would be a pretty sweet gig. But then Jesus does something that sends Judas over the edge. And he goes, all right, forget it. I'm done playing games. I'm done trying to, help you out, Jesus. I'm walking away. And typically when we see people resign, like in the news, usually we go, uh-oh. Something happened. Something fishy's going on here. But with Jesus and Judas, it was just the opposite. It wasn't something bad that Jesus did. In fact, it was something extraordinarily generous. Matthew 26, verse 6. While Jesus was in Bethany, the home of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, which she poured on his head as he was reclining at the table. All right, so just so we're clear here, this wasn't Axe body spray, okay? Guys, this is the kind of perfume that you buy your wives when you have messed up big time. You know what I'm talking about? You know the one? Yeah, that's the kind of perfume that we're talking about. In fact, John tells us in his gospel that this perfume was so expensive, it was worth a year's wages. So imagine someone comes to you and they give you the choice. I mean, just think about however much money you make in an entire year. And they give you a choice. They say, you can have all that money in one lump sum, cold hard cash, or you will take that same money and invest it in the best spa day ever. Which one would you choose? How many people say, show me the money, I want the cash? All right, okay, I got you. How many people say, no, I want the spa day, best spa day ever? No one. Okay, all right, I see where your mind's at. Oh, one person, all right, well, too bad. Guess what? I can't give you either one, so don't get too excited. But for this woman, it wasn't even a choice. Because after she had experienced the lavish, the extravagant love of Jesus, she goes, after the grace and the mercy that you've shown me, I don't even have a choice. There's nothing I can do but give you everything that I have. And this is the most expensive thing that I have ever owned and probably ever will own. And so I want to show you how much I love you, how much your love has changed my life, Jesus. It's all yours. And to me, it's such a beautiful picture, a beautiful reminder that the size of your giving reflects the size of your gratitude. She was so grateful for everything that Jesus had done for her, completely changed her life. She said, my only response, the only thing that I can do is give you all that I have, Jesus. The disciples, not so much. When the disciples saw this, they go, hey, wait a minute, don't we get a vote here? Like, we don't want the spa day. We want the cash. Show me the money. Matthew 26, verse 8, the disciples, they were indignant. They said, why this waste? The perfume could have been sold at a high price and the money given to the poor. Now we know, right? It's rude to just ask for money. You can't just come out and say, hey, I want the money. So they don't do that. They go, oh, no, it's not for us. It's about the poor. We just care about all those poor people out there. Why didn't you sell it and give it to the poor? But Jesus sees right through that. He comes to the woman's defense. Verse 10. Why are you bothering this woman? She has done a beautiful thing for me. The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. When she poured out this perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. Oh, wait a minute, Jesus, burial? What? No, you're not going to die. You're the Messiah. Don't you know Messiahs are supposed to live forever? Their kingdoms will never end. And besides, if you die, Jesus, what happens to us? We've given up everything to follow you. You can't die. You can't back out on us now. Then Jesus says something. He comes back at them in a way that only Jesus can. It's mind-blowing. It's like so amazing. Like, how does he think of this? Are you guys ready for this? No, you guys aren't ready for this. All right, come on. I'm going to give you one more chance. I said, are you guys ready for this? Yeah. All right, here we go. Matthew 26, he says, I tell you the truth, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has been done will also be told in memory of her. Oh, wait a minute, Jesus. What do you mean whenever this story is told throughout the world? Yeah, what she did, that was weird, that was crazy, but that's like the story that you tell at the dinner table, right? That's not the story you put in the history books. And Jesus goes, no, you guys don't realize, but what you just saw, what just happened right here in front of you, we just made history. People are going to be talking about this for generations and generations and generations. People are going to be talking about this across cultures and nations and languages. Right? Jesus predicted that this was going to go viral before going viral was even a thing. I mean, just let that sink in. It's like if you and I went to Starbucks and I spilled my coffee on you, I said, whoa, we just made history. You'd be like, get out of here. That is crazy. But Jesus not only predicts his death and his resurrection, but he predicts that this seemingly random, seemingly just kind of weird, quirky moment is something that we would be talking about here 2,000 years later across the world. And so I say all that simply to say this, friends, if maybe you're not sure about Jesus, or maybe if you're not sure that the Bible can be trusted, guess what? When someone predicts their own death and resurrection, and then they pull it off, when someone predicts something that's going to go viral for 2,000 years, that's someone who knows what they're talking about. That's someone that you want to pay attention to. That's someone worth following. Just saying. Now, John gives us an important detail here that we miss in the whole conversation in Matthew's gospel. And John tells us that it was Judas who first got the disciples going, who stirred up this animosity about not giving the money to the poor. John 12:6 says, Judas did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. And so when Judas sees all this money just walking out the door or being wasted from his perspective, he goes, that's it, I'm done. I can't do this Jesus thing anymore. If he doesn't understand, how much that was worth, then we're done. So what does he do? Judas, one of the 12, went to the chief priests and asks, what are you willing to give me if I will deliver him over to you? Now, we don't know exactly what's going through Judas's mind here. We don't know what his motivation is. Maybe he thinks if I back Jesus into a corner, then he's going to have to come out sweeting. He'll finally be the Messiah that I want him to be. Maybe he's just trying to stir the pot. Maybe he's just trying to see how Jesus will react. But the one thing we do know is that whatever happens, Judas is looking to make a profit. Right? He goes, if I can't profit off of my relationship with Jesus, then I'm going to profit off of the chief priests. Now that raises the question, why did the priests need Judas at all? I mean, it's not like Jesus was hiding. Every day he was preaching in the temple. They knew exactly where to find him. And the answer is because of something we talked about last week, the crowds. Right? The crowds loved Jesus. They were going crazy for Jesus. If they arrested Jesus in the temple, they would have had a riot on their hands. They would have been run out of town. And so they go, we need to get Jesus away from the crowds, out of the spotlight. And Judas says, I can give that to you. What would that be worth to you? And they come back and they go, well, that would be worth about 30 pieces of silver. Now, I'm just saying, if I'm Judas, I would have negotiated a higher price. That better at least be 30 pieces of gold. You know what I'm saying? I mean, think about all that Jesus and Judas have been through. Judas had a front row seat for every sermon, every miracle, every changed life. He was there when Jesus fed the 5,000. He helped pick up the loaves and the fish that were left over. He was there when Jesus walked on water. He could feel the salt spray on his face as Jesus climbed back into the boat. And after all of that, Judas goes, you know what, Jesus? All you're worth to me is 30 pieces of silver, or the price of a common slave. Like, seriously, Judas, that's it? That's all Jesus is worth to you? I shake my head like, seriously? Until I start to think about what I've sold Jesus out for, right? For my pride, for my comfort, for my reputation, for pleasure, for accolades. I used to think, man, if I could just get that, if I could just get this, then I would be happy. Then my life would be complete. So yeah, it might cost me my relationship with Jesus, but it's worth it. And I look back on some of those times in my life now, and I realize that's nothing but 30 pieces of silver. Judas had his price. I have definitely had my price. What's your price? What have you been willing to sell Jesus out for? What have you exchanged your relationship with God for because you thought it would make your life better? Verse 16. From then on, Judas watched for an opportunity to hand Jesus over. Turns out he didn't have to look very hard because that week was the Passover. And later that week, Jesus gathers his disciples in the upper room for the Last Supper. Now, just help me out here. I just want you to imagine for a moment what it would have been like to be one of the disciples, to be there in the room. Imagine what it smelled like, what the food tasted like. All right, can you kind of see it? You have a picture of that in your mind? Yeah, maybe, kind of, sort of. All right, how many of you, your picture of the Last Supper looks something like this? Yeah, pretty much, right? Right? Now, this is an amazing painting. The only problem is, Da Vinci, when he painted this, he didn't do his homework. Because guess what? Jesus and the disciples, they wouldn't sit at a table and chairs like we do today. They would have sat at a table much more like this one. A three-sided table that was low to the ground. Now, if you were sitting at this table, how would you sit? Crisscross applesauce, right? Well, at least that's what we teach our kids to do. But again, that's not how the disciples, that wasn't the custom in that culture. When they came around a dinner table or a triennium table like this one, they would have been reclining on their sides, laying on their left side so that they could eat the meal with their right hand. And they wouldn't be spread out all around the table. It would have been very intimate. So the person sitting next to you would lay their head right here on your chest. Right, so just imagine the disciples and Jesus, they're gathered around this table. And if there's one thing that we know, that when a bunch of guys get together, showering is not a high priority. Right? If you're one of the disciples, you don't want to be smelling what Peter or James have just stepped on out in the street. But if there's one thing that they didn't want more, it was to touch another man's feet. Right? That's against the man code. You don't do that. So they come into the room and they don't want to smell their own feet. They certainly don't want to touch someone else's feet. And so they just roll with it. Halfway through the meal, Jesus goes, all right, you guys think you're too cool, you're too important to serve your friend, to wash one another's feet? Then I'm going to do it for you. Get John 13, verse 3. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, wrapped a towel around his waist, and after that he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. Now, did you catch that? It says that God has put all authority and all power under Jesus' control. He is literally the most important, the most powerful person on the planet. And with that power, with that platform that God has given him, what does he do? Does he elevate himself? Does he say, hey, world, look how great I am? No. He uses that power. He uses that influence. He uses that platform to serve other people. So it just makes me wonder, what platform has God given you? What power, what privilege, what influence has God placed in your life? And what am I doing with the platform that God has given me? Am I using it to elevate myself? Am I using it to say, hey world, look how great I am? Or am I walking through life looking for opportunities to serve my friends, to serve my family, to serve my neighbors, to serve those who are less fortunate? Jesus said, I haven't come to be served, but to serve and to give my life away. So Jesus goes around the table washing his disciples' feet. And when he gets to Peter, Peter says, no way, not me, Jesus. You're not washing my feet. To which Jesus replies, sit down and shut up, Peter. We're doing this. No, he doesn't say that. That's probably what I would have said to him. Verse 7, Jesus says, you do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand. No, said Peter, you shall never wash my feet. Jesus answered, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. In other words, Jesus says, Peter, unless you can find the humility to be served, how are you ever going to be humble enough to serve someone else? I just wonder maybe if that's some of us here today, that we're always looking to serve other people, but we never allow other people to help us. And I get it. On the surface, that looks great, right? That looks really humble, really godly, really Jesus-like. But if we never allow other people to serve us, there's a certain pride, there's a certain arrogance in that, isn't there? That says, you know what, I don't need you. You all need me. I'm going to help you out. But when it comes to serving me, no, I got this. I'm good on my own. I'm strong enough. I'm smart enough. I don't need your help. It's like Jesus models for us here. That's not the way it's supposed to work. We are better together. We are stronger together than any of us can be on our own. And that's why we need to be willing to receive the blessing from others so that we can turn around and be a blessing for others. But when we refuse that blessing, what happens? I'll tell you what happens. You get burned out and bitter and resentful. I know that because I've been there. And trust me, that is not a blessing to anyone. So for me, the most amazing thing about this scene in the upper room isn't the fact that he washes his disciples' feet. It's the fact that he washes every single one of their feet. Even Judas, knowing that in just a moment he's going to walk out the door and betray him. John 13:21 says, Jesus exclaimed, I tell you the truth, one of you will betray me. Now I just have to imagine in this moment, Judas feels like the kid with his hand caught in the cookie jar, right? He goes, how did I not see this coming? Of course Jesus knew. Of course Jesus was going to find me out because he always knows. He always knows what people are going to say. He always knows what people are going to do, even before they do it. And so Judas thinks he's done. He thinks that he is toast. He thinks that he is trapped because now he's there in the upper room. They're blocking the exits. There's 12 of them and one of him. And Peter, he's always carrying around that stupid sword like one day he's actually going to use it. And he's going, this is it, I'm done. But then in the biggest twist of all time, Jesus told Judas, hurry and do what you're going to do. In other words, Jesus looks at Judas and he goes, I just want you to know, I know what you're up to, but I'm not going to stop you. And so none of the others at the table knew what Jesus meant. Since Judas was their treasurer, some thought Jesus was telling him to go and pay for the food. Some thought he was supposed to give money to the poor. So Judas left at once, going out into the night. And there it is. Judas thinks he has dodged a bullet. He thinks that he has won. He thinks that his plan is going exactly the way he imagined it. That's because he hasn't read the rest of the story. He doesn't know what we know, which is that you can't play God, right? You can't leverage Jesus to get what you want. You can work with God or you can work against God, but you cannot outsmart God. So again, we don't know exactly what's going through Judas's mind at this moment, but we do know he never thought he was going to get as far as it got. Maybe he thought that they would just detain him, keep him out of the public sphere. Maybe they thought that they would just try and humiliate him. But Judas never thought it was going to get as far as it did. Matthew 27, verse 3, when Judas, who had betrayed him, realized that Jesus had been condemned to die, he was filled with remorse. So he took the 30 pieces of silver back to the leading priests and elders. Has that ever happened to you? Where you got exactly what you thought that you wanted, but then it didn't turn out to be so great? You know, if I could just get that job, if I could just be with him, if I could just be more like her, if I could just get even with them, then my life would be great. But then you get exactly what you think that you want, and it's not what you thought it would be. Maybe that's where some of us are living right now. Because it's like we said last week, our greatest regrets are associated with our attempts to hang on to something that's no longer a part of our life. That's what happened to Judas. He thought that he could leverage Jesus to get the power, to get the influence, to get the position that he wanted. But it backfired on him. It blew up in his face. And he realized that you can't play Jesus. You can't outsmart God. But by the time he figured that out, it was too late. The wheels had been set in motion. And so he said to the chief priests and the elders, I've sinned, for I betrayed an innocent man. What do we care, they retorted. That's your problem. Not a whole lot of compassion there for Judas, is there? But what they said is right on. Because anytime that we try and play God, this is always the result. It always blows up in our face. Why? Because God hates us? Because he's trying to punish us? Because he's trying to teach us a lesson? No. It's because you and I are really bad at playing God. And when we try and step into that role, we find out really quickly that we are in way over our heads. Verse 5, then Judas threw the silver coins down in the temple and went out and hanged himself. So he gained 30 pieces of silver, but he lost his life. It's just like Jesus told us. You can gain the whole world, but lose your soul. So here's why this matters. Here's why we're talking about Judas today. Because all too often, we sacrifice our relationship with Jesus for something that we can't hold on to anyway. So what is that thing for you? What is that thing that God has been asking you to let go of, that he has been asking you to sacrifice, that he has been asking you to surrender? And what is that thing that you go, you know what, God, I just don't know if I can do it. I don't know if my life will actually be better without that thing. I just don't know if I can go there, God. I don't know if I can make that sacrifice. It's too big, it's too much. I don't know if you are enough for me. That's you. Let me ask you this question. Why would you hang on to something that you are going to lose anyway, in order to gain something that God says will never be taken from you? Why not give up the anger so that you can experience forgiveness? Why not give up the resentment so that you can experience freedom? Why not give up the pornography so that you can experience intimacy? Why not give up the addiction so that you can experience healing? And here's the part of Judas' story that should scare us the most. And that is that when we bargain with God rather than surrender to him, we're responsible for the outcome, not God. Right? Look at what happened to Judas. He thought, well, if I can just have my own way, my life will be great. But Judas' story shows us that God won't get in the way of us having our own way. He'll love you, he'll fight for you, but at the end of the day, if you choose to walk a different path, Jesus says, all right, go ahead, walk that path. He won't take away the responsibility of our decisions. He loves us too much to rob us of our free will, even if that means that we're undermining our own success. Now I get it. Bargaining with God is very tempting because it's easier to bargain with God than it is to surrender to him. It's easier to argue with God and go, no, let's do it my way, than it is to say, no, God, not my will, but your will be done. And I get it. It's surrender is a unsettling place to be because we like to be in control. We like to feel like we're the masters of our domain. But guess what, friends? It's a lie. You cannot control the circumstances. You cannot control the outcomes. You cannot control other people. But when you surrender, when you lay it down and say, okay, God, not my will, your will be done. God says, all right, your journey, that's on me. It's not up to you anymore. The outcome, that's on me. And you can trust me. Let's stand and pray together. If you can help me out here this morning, as we wrap up, if we can just have every head bowed, every eye closed. And my prayer for us this morning is simple. It's that whatever God is calling you to let go of, whatever it is that God is calling you to sacrifice, that you would just see so crystal clearly that whatever it is that you may gain for a moment, it is never worth the sacrifice of losing our relationship, that intimacy with God. And so whatever that thing may be this morning, where you just go, God, I want to let it go, but I'm not sure if I can. I get it. I understand where you're coming from. You might go, it's too big a risk to surrender to a God that I cannot see, that I cannot hear, that I cannot touch. But let me tell you, the even bigger risk is to go, I've got this. That the outcome is on me, that I can control my situation, that I can manipulate God to get what I want, that I'm going to do things my way rather than God's way. So if that's you this morning, if there's something that God has been asking you to let go of, make this the moment that you finally let it go, that you are free from that burden of having to try and make things work out the way that you want, and instead you experience the freedom and the life that is truly life. And I know that for some of you, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because through this message, God has been bringing it to your mind over and over and over again. And you've been pushing it down and ignoring it and going, no, I've got this. I can control it. I can handle it. It's all good. But just know, friends, that's the Holy Spirit knocking on the door of your heart. And he says, I want you to experience freedom. I want you to be able to set it down and let it go. You know, maybe it's a resentment. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a fear or an anxiety, an addiction, a possession. Whatever that thing may be that God is asking you to let go. He's not going to force you. He's not going to pry it out of your hands. But whatever it is, do not make the mistake that Judas made of going, I can control this. I can manipulate God to get what I want. Right here, right now, this is your moment to let it go, to be free. Or maybe you're here this morning and you're going, God, I want to let it go, but I don't know that I can go there. There's something inside of me that's holding me back. I'm scared. And if that's you this morning, you know what? Jesus wants to meet you in that place. Maybe your prayer is simply to say, God, I want to let it go, but I'm not sure that I can do it. If that's you this morning, God's knocking on the door of your heart. All you have to do is open the door, and he says, you know what? I'm going to help you. I'm going to be there every single step of the way. So if that's you this morning, I want to invite you. The altars are open. This is your place. This is your moment to meet with the God of the universe, the God who loves you more than you can imagine. Right now, the band's going to lead us in a song, and as they do, I just want to invite you to come forward. Again, this is between you and God. No one else is looking around. This is your moment. This is the time that you can experience the freedom and the life that Jesus died for you to have. So as you come and as the band leads us right now, let me pray for us. Thank you, Jesus, that you are a life changer. We see it over and over and over again through the Gospels. Everyone who came into contact with you and opened their hearts up to you, their lives were never the same again. And that wasn't just true 2,000 years ago. We see it today. We see it right here. We see it right now. Lord, there are so many testimonies of your power and your mercy and your grace and your forgiveness in this room. But we come to you again and we say, we need you, Lord. We are desperate for you. We can't do this on our own. Would you help us become more like you? Would you help us become the person that you created us to be? Thank you, God, that your mercy never ends, that is made new each morning, and we need your mercy today. Would you pour it out on us? Pray this in your holy, precious name.